I trusted my wife for 12 years, until a doctor told me the truth. I hadn't touched anyone but Rachel since we met in college. So either the test was wrong, or everything I believed about my marriage was a lie. I woke up with the kind of pain that doesn't wait. Sharp, sudden, like something wrong was boiling inside me. It was still early, barely past 6, the sun leaking weak orange light through the blinds. I swung my legs off the bed and sat there for a second, trying to figure out if I'd slept weird or maybe just needed to piss. But the second I moved, the burning started, low, concentrated, angry, deep inside my groin. I didn't want to panic. It's amazing how far the mind goes to deny what's obvious. I told myself it could be a kidney stone or maybe a bladder infection. I don't know. Maybe I pulled something mowing the lawn yesterday. My wife, Rachel, was still asleep, curled up on her side like nothing had changed. We've been married 12 years. She still wears her hair in that messy braid when she sleeps, the way she used to back in college. I stared at her for a second, peaceful, beautiful, and then another wave of burning hit me. I winced and stood up slowly, careful not to wake her. The urgent care center opened at 7 a.m. I was the first one there, pacing near the glass doors like a man with a secret. I didn't want to tell the nurse what I was feeling. I muttered something vague: pain, discomfort, trouble peeing. She gave me a clipboard and that fake smile they give everyone, and I sat down, trying not to squirm. The waiting room TV was playing a cooking show. Bright colors, cheerful voices, sizzling pans. It felt grotesque. I stared at it without blinking, nausea growing. It wasn't just the pain. It was something underneath it, something darker I hadn't wanted to name yet. The doctor came in, middle-aged guy with a kind face but efficient. He asked some questions, then asked them again with more pointed wording. Any new sexual partners? No. Have you and your wife ever opened the marriage? No. Unprotected sex outside your relationship? No. He paused, looked down at the chart, then back up. I'm going to need a urine sample. Based on the symptoms, it might be an STI. I blinked. No, I said too quickly. I've only been with my wife. He didn't say anything, just nodded and handed me a plastic cup. The silence in the bathroom was deafening. Everything echoed. The faucet, the sound of me trying to aim despite the pain, the fear crawling through my chest. It burned like hell. An hour later, I was back in the room. My stomach was tight. I kept looking at my phone like I might find a normal text from Rachel that would make this whole thing feel less surreal. But there was nothing. Just a photo she'd sent yesterday of the dog wrapped in a blanket. The doctor came back in with a printout and sat down across from me like he was about to give condolences. You have gonorrhea. The words didn't land at first. They hovered in the air, thick and impossible. No, I said again, like that would change something. That's not... I've only been with my wife. He nodded slowly. Then you should have a conversation with your wife. I felt my throat close. My body stayed still, but inside something cracked, like a glass shelf holding up a life I thought I understood. 12 years, cooked dinners, shared holidays. Couples counseling 2 years ago when we hit a rough patch, but we made it through, or so I thought. I couldn't even process the humiliation yet. That came later. Right now, it was just confusion, and then something colder. Calculation. Who? When? How long? I asked if there was any chance it could be a mistake. He said false positives happen, but the test was clear. He handed me a prescription and a sheet with CDC information and the names of local clinics for follow-up. I nodded. I thanked him. I shook his hand. And then I walked out into the daylight feeling like I wasn't real, like I was watching someone else walk to their car in the parking lot, holding a piece of paper that said he'd been betrayed in the most intimate way possible. Inside the car, I sat with the air conditioning blowing in my face and the pill bottle sweating in my palm. My hands were shaking. I didn't call her. I didn't even drive home. I just sat there and stared at the prescription label until my name blurred, and all that remained was the reality I didn't want to say out loud yet. My wife cheated on me. I didn't go home. I drove to Aaron's. He and his wife live out near Greenville, in a ranch-style house with a wide porch and a crooked basketball hoop their kids have outgrown. I didn't call ahead. I just showed up like a ghost with blood on his hands. Aaron was in the driveway, washing his car with a bucket and an old sponge. He saw me and raised a hand. Then he saw my face, and his expression shifted. "You all right, man?" he asked, dropping the sponge into the suds. "No," I said. My voice cracked on that one syllable. "Can we talk?" He didn't ask anything else, just nodded and opened the garage door. We sat in lawn chairs, surrounded by tools and a rusty bike he's been meaning to fix for 3 summers. His wife Meredith came out a few minutes later with coffee and those soft cinnamon cookies she always makes when someone's hurting. She didn't ask questions either. Just kissed my cheek and said, "Whatever it is, we're here." It took me a while to say it. I danced around it, started with the pain, the visit to urgent care, the doctor's expression, the words I couldn't unhear. I couldn't look them in the eyes. I stared at the concrete floor like it held the answer I'd missed. And then it came out, shaky, but final. "I have gonorrhea." Aaron blinked. Meredith's eyes widened, but not in judgment, in alarm. I pressed my knuckles against my mouth, trying to stop the shaking. I've only been with Rachel, ever, since college. There's no one else, not even once. So, that means... It hung there for a second, like smoke in still air. "She cheated on you," Aaron said softly. And that was the first time I heard it out loud, like a sentence carved into stone. My wife cheated on me. I didn't cry, not then. But Meredith did. She reached for my hand and held it with both of hers, her thumbs brushing back and forth like she was trying to warm me back to life. Aaron stood up, ran a hand through his graying hair, then paced once across the garage before coming back. "I'm so damn sorry, man," he said. "God, I don't even have words." We sat in silence for a minute. The garage door was still open, and a neighbor's kid rode past on a scooter, oblivious to the quiet devastation happening inside. Then Meredith asked if I wanted to pray. I hesitated, not because I didn't believe, but because I didn't know how to ask God for help when I felt so dirty. Still, I nodded. We all joined hands in a clumsy triangle, Aaron's big hand wrapped tight around mine, Meredith's voice low and steady as she prayed for strength, for clarity, for truth, for peace that passes understanding. I felt something crack open inside me. Not healing, not yet, but something close to stillness, like I could breathe for the first time since the diagnosis. Afterward, we sat back down. I didn't say anything for a while, just listened to the quiet tick of the garage clock and the occasional bark from their retriever in the backyard. "I keep thinking back," I said finally, trying to figure out when things started to go off course. And suddenly I was back there, Rachel at 19 in a thrifted sundress, twirling on the lawn outside our college chapel. I was studying engineering. She was into early childhood education. We met in a Bible study group of all places. She was the funny one, the girl who could quote Proverbs and then turn around and challenge the pastor on a theological point without flinching. I fell fast, hard. She made me feel seen, chosen. We got married young, 23. My dad was skeptical, said we should wait, get a few more years under our belts. But we were in love, or at least something that felt like love and smelled like clean sheets and tasted like shared milkshakes at 1 a.m. She was the center of my world for a long time. We moved to Charlotte, bought a little townhouse near Monroe Road. I got a job with a civil engineering firm. She started teaching first grade. The cracks weren't obvious at first, just little things. She stopped laughing at my jokes, stopped touching me when we passed in the hallway, started coming home later, more distracted. I chalked it up to stress, to aging, to routine. We weren't 20 anymore. But deep down, I think I knew something was drifting. I didn't ask. Maybe because I was scared of the answer. Maybe because I didn't want to be the guy who couldn't make his marriage work. I believed in vows. I believed in redemption. But now, I feel like I don't know who she is anymore, I said, staring at my empty coffee mug. Aaron nodded slowly. Then he stood and disappeared into the house for a few minutes. When he came back, he had a small white business card in his hand. My dad used this guy when things got messy with his ex. He's tough but honest. You don't have to call him today. Just keep it. I took it, turned it over in my hand. The name was Carl Denton, attorney at law, a number written in thick blue ink. It felt like a key to a door I never wanted to open. But I knew I would. I was ready to confront her that night. I'd printed the clinic report, highlighted the diagnosis in bright yellow. I even rehearsed what I'd say. Not some movie monologue, just the truth. Cold, sharp, unrelenting. You gave me gonorrhea. I know you cheated. I got tested. Here's the proof. But she didn't come home. At first, I assumed the worst, that she was with him, whoever he was. Some faceless man I'd started imagining in every parked car, every coworker's name she mentioned too casually. I paced the living room for an hour, watching the hallway like a man waiting for an ambush. By midnight, I was calling her phone, straight to voicemail, again. Finally, around 1:40 a.m., I got a call, but not from her. It was a nurse from Atrium Health. Are you Mr. Harris? Yes. Your wife, Rachel, listed you as an emergency contact. She was brought in earlier this evening. I froze. What happened? She collapsed during a faculty meeting. Fever, chills, vomiting. She's stable, but we've admitted her. The doctor will want to speak with you directly when you arrive. For a moment, I thought maybe this was punishment. Not for her, but for me. For everything I'd been thinking. For how badly I wanted to hurt her, expose her. For how I'd stared at the prescription bottle like it was a grenade I could throw into our lives. The hospital was cold in that particular way only hospitals are. All steel and lemon cleaner. I was led to a consultation room with a small table and a stack of outdated magazines. The doctor walked in 10 minutes later, clipboard in hand, glasses halfway down his nose. She's very sick, he said without preamble. Severe pelvic inflammatory disease. It's likely the result of an untreated STI. There's damage, possibly permanent. I sat still, barely breathing. We've also done a full panel, given the markers in her blood work. There's a chance she may have contracted HIV. The results will take a few days. I felt like someone had dropped me through the floor. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something, anything. The table, the clipboard, my whole body against the wall. Instead, I nodded. The doctor softened. She asked if you were here. I told her you were on your way. I stood outside the door to her room for a full minute before I went in. She looked small, her skin pale against the sheets, an IV in her arm, her hair pulled back sloppily. She was asleep, or sedated, I couldn't tell. There were machines I didn't recognize and a monitor that beeped in a steady, quiet rhythm that made me want to cry. This wasn't how I imagined it. I thought I'd see her angry, guilty, maybe crying, maybe lying. Not like this. Not vulnerable. Not broken. I sat in the plastic chair beside her and stared at her hand. The same hand I held when we said vows. The same hand that touched my face 1,000 nights, that brought me soup when I was sick, that signed holiday cards with "Love always, Rach." I didn't feel nothing. That would have been easier. I felt everything. Fury, nausea, love, hate, pity, revulsion. I wanted her to wake up so I could ask why. I wanted her to never wake up so I wouldn't have to hear the answer. But I knew one thing. I couldn't stay. Not anymore. I reached into my jacket and pulled out the envelope I'd prepared hours earlier. Inside was a copy of my test result. Her name was on it too. The contact tracing protocol meant they had already notified her, or would. But I needed her to see that I knew. I wanted her to see the timeline, the yellow highlight, the proof. On top of the printout, I wrote by hand, "You didn't just break my trust, you risked my life." Then, after a long pause, I added, "I loved you." That part was always real, even when everything else wasn't. I placed the envelope on the bedside table, and then I took off my ring. It wasn't dramatic, no trembling hands, no music swell. I just slid it off and placed it beside the envelope like I was returning something I'd borrowed for too long. She shifted in her sleep, murmured something soft and unintelligible. I stood. I looked at her one last time. Not the woman I married, not the woman who betrayed me, just a human being who was sick and alone. And I walked out. I didn't take the elevator. I took the stairs, all 8 floors down. I needed to feel the burn in my legs. I needed to remind myself that I was still alive, still moving, still leaving. 2 weeks after the hospital, I handed Rachel the divorce papers. I met her in the living room of her sister's house, where she'd been staying since she was discharged. The place smelled like lavender candles and baby wipes. Her sister had stepped out with the kids to give us space. Rachel sat on the couch, thinner than before, dressed in a gray sweatshirt and leggings. No makeup. Her hair tied back in a lazy bun. She looked tired, not just physically, but down to the bone. Like guilt itself had weight, and she'd been carrying it uphill. I sat across from her. I didn't lean forward. I didn't soften my voice. But I wasn't cruel either. "I brought the papers," I said, laying the manila envelope on the coffee table between us. She stared at it for a second like it might burst into flames. Her eyes welled up immediately, but I didn't flinch. I'd rehearsed this moment in my head too many times. "You don't want to talk first?" she whispered. "I don't need to." "But I do." I nodded once. "Then talk." She didn't launch into excuses. I think she knew they wouldn't matter. Instead, she stared down at her hands and began quietly, like someone reading a confession in church. "It wasn't a one-time thing," she said. My jaw tightened. "I met him at a conference last fall," she continued. "He was divorced, worked in curriculum development. We started talking. He made me feel..." Her voice cracked. "He made me feel like someone wanted to listen." I closed my eyes. "It wasn't love," she rushed. "It wasn't even good, not really. I felt invisible at home. Not because of you, just because of life." I opened my eyes again. "You could have told me you were unhappy." "I didn't know how." "You could have left before dragging me into it." "I know." She was crying now, quiet and steady. No sobs, just grief leaking out of her. "I'm sorry, Alex, I am. I wake up every day and I hate what I did. I hate who I became. I know I've lost you. I deserve to lose you. But I'm asking, please, can you at least believe that I didn't mean to destroy everything?" I sat still for a long time. It's strange how you can sit across from someone you used to love and feel like you're looking at a stranger wearing their skin. "I believe you didn't mean for it to get this far," I said finally. "But it did. And I have to live with that every day. I trusted you with my life, and you made choices that put that life at risk. You made me question every memory, every promise. I don't have hate for you, Rachel, not anymore. But I don't have room for you either." She pressed a fist against her lips to keep from breaking. I didn't reach for her. I didn't want to. "I'll sign whatever you need," she said softly. "It's already done. You just need to acknowledge receipt and speak to your attorney." She nodded. I stood. As I turned to leave, I stopped at the entryway table, the one that used to sit in our foyer, back when we still had ours. There, next to a pile of mail and a framed photo of her nieces, was a small porcelain dish. Inside were both our wedding rings, hers and mine. She must have brought them from the house. I picked them up. They were warm, like they'd been held before I arrived. Rachel looked up, eyes wide, realizing what I was doing. "You don't have to take mine," she said. "I do," I replied. Not because I wanted them, but because they didn't belong to her anymore. Not as a symbol, not as a memory, not after what she'd turned them into. I held them in my palm, both gold bands, simple, unadorned, chosen with love in a small jeweler's shop 12 years ago. Engraved inside hers was the verse she picked, Ephesians 4:2. Be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love. I almost laughed. Instead, I closed my fist around them, and with that, I walked out. The sky was overcast, the kind of gray that feels like an exhale. The wind was light. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like I was suffocating. I walked to my car without looking back. There was no dramatic slam of the door, no last-minute chase, no speech from a weeping woman in the driveway, just me. A man holding 2 gold circles and nothing else. A man finally alone, but free. It's been 7 months. The house is quieter now, but not empty. There's laughter in the mornings, my daughter singing to the dog, my son arguing with the cereal box like it personally offended him. Some nights are lonely, but most are just quiet, and I've learned to be okay with that. I've rebuilt a routine. Wake up at 6:30, make lunches, drive the kids to school, work, cook, fold laundry while a podcast hums in the background. Repeat. It's not heroic, but it's stable. After the divorce was finalized, I moved us into a smaller house, a 3-bedroom ranch with a backyard big enough for a trampoline and a raised garden bed I've yet to finish. There's still stuff in boxes I haven't unpacked. Picture frames, books from college, Rachel's leftover junk I didn't have the energy to toss. I keep it in the garage, like an unresolved chapter I don't need to reread just yet. The kids adjusted better than I expected. They ask about their mom sometimes. She sees them on weekends. It's civil, distant. I don't talk bad about her. I don't talk much about her at all. They'll have to figure out their own truths when they're old enough. For now, I focus on being present, cooking their favorite meals, sitting through awkward middle school plays, helping with math homework I barely remember how to do. One Thursday afternoon, I picked up my daughter from school and she handed me a flyer, some event about family reading night. "You should come," she said, buckling herself in. "Ms. Taylor says there'll be pizza." Hard to say no to free pizza, I smiled. I went. I sat in a circle of plastic chairs meant for 4th graders and listened to kids mispronounce words with wild confidence. It was chaotic, warm, human. And there, in the corner of the library, was her, Ms. Taylor, 30-something. Soft brown hair pulled into a low ponytail, reading glasses perched on her head, and a cardigan with little embroidered apples. She wasn't flashy, not the type who tried to be the center of the room. But she had a laugh you could recognize from across the library, real, open, like it belonged to someone who'd learned how to enjoy small things. We talked for a while afterward. She said my daughter was kind, creative, The kind of kid who notices when someone looks sad and asks why. I didn't tell her where that came from. I just nodded. A week later, I dropped off a book the class had borrowed, and Ms. Taylor met me at the front desk. She handed me a sticky note with her number. Said if I ever wanted to talk about books, kids, or anything less chaotic than parenting, she was around. I waited 3 days before texting. We went to dinner at a little Italian place tucked behind the post office. Not fancy. Paper tablecloths, candle in a jar, the kind of place you go when you want to talk, not perform. I was nervous in a way I hadn't been in years. Not because I was trying to impress her, but because I wasn't sure if I remembered how to be just a man, not a husband, not a father, just me. But she made it easy. We talked about everything except our pasts, teaching, cooking disasters, weird neighbors, that feeling of being 36 and wondering how the hell you got here. At the end of the night, we hugged in the parking lot. No kiss, no promises, just warmth. The next morning, my daughter asked if I had fun. I paused, then smiled. Yeah, I did. She beamed. Good, you should smile more. Your face looks less tired when you do. Out of the mouths of children, some days I still feel the weight of it all, the betrayal, the way Rachel looked in that hospital bed, the envelope, the rings. There's a part of me that'll always carry that, not out of bitterness, but because it happened, because it shaped me. But I'm not dragging it anymore. I'm just walking with it. And somehow, that feels lighter. I don't know where this road goes. I don't know what Ms. Taylor and I will become. I'm not trying to define it. Not yet. But I do know this. I'm not standing still.